Hey, architecture firm owners and emerging leaders. Get ready for unparalleled insight into the development of a world-class architecture firm and a worldwide organization driving the digital transformation of the design and construction industry. With Build Smart, the podcast that's changing how our profession operates. We share the incredible stories behind innovation in the building industry with my friend and co-host, Patrick McLeamy, FAIA, former CEO of the international architecture firm, HOK.
You know, Yamasaki's office or firm lasted during his lifetime. And when he passed away, I think that was the end of the Yamasaki office. Helmut did not want that. He wanted a firm that would live out and grow beyond the founders.
In Season 1, discover the untold stories behind HOK's meteoric rise, from 150 employees in St. Louis to a powerhouse with over 1,900 staff members and 27 offices worldwide.
You know, they weren't as polite as the Kojima people. That was just boom. And anytime you have a creditor, whether it's Kojima or the bank, that wants their money, unless you can raise money someplace else, you are out of business.
Bankrupt. And hold on tight for Season 2, where Patrick takes us on a new adventure as chairman of Building Smart International, shaping the future of digital transformation in the design, construction, and operation of built assets.
Ian Howell, Ken Harold, and I, Ken was my technical representative from HOK. The three of us took a tour of Europe of 5 cities in 5 days. Very busy time.
Simply follow the link in the show notes to subscribe to Build Smart now and uncover lessons that will transform you and your architecture firm. Hey, architecture firm owners and emerging leaders. Get ready for unparalleled insight into the development of a world-class architecture firm and a worldwide organization driving the digital transformation of the design and construction industry. With Build Smart, the podcast that's changing how our profession operates. We share the incredible stories behind innovation in the building industry with my friend and co-host, Patrick McLeamy, FAIA, former CEO of the international architecture firm, HOK.
You know, Yamasaki's office or firm lasted during his lifetime. And when he passed away, I think that was the end of the Yamasaki office. Helmut did not want that. He wanted a firm that would live out and grow beyond the founders.
In Season 1, discover the untold stories behind HOK's meteoric rise, from 150 employees in St. Louis to a powerhouse with over 1,900 staff members and 27 offices worldwide.
You know, they weren't as polite as the Kojima people. That was just boom. And anytime you have a creditor, whether it's Kojima or the bank, that wants their money, unless you can raise money someplace else, you are out of business.
Bankrupt. And hold on tight for Season 2, where Patrick takes us on a new adventure as chairman of Building Smart International, shaping the future of digital transformation in the design, construction, and operation of built assets.
Ian Howell, Ken Harold, and I, Ken was my technical representative from HOK. The three of us took a tour of Europe of 5 cities in 5 days. Very busy time.
Simply follow the link in the show notes to subscribe to Build Smart now and uncover lessons that will transform you and your architecture firm.
The real impact of women in architecture has gone unrecognized for a long time.
Their ideas have shaped our neighborhoods and our homes.
But their names have been largely left out of the history that defines our profession.
That blind spot matters. It matters for how we see the past and for how we design and build for the future.
We wanted to have this conversation because you can't move forward if you ignore the work that built the foundations in the first place. Gable Media is committed to advancing stories that shift our field.
So it only made sense that your girls from She Builds podcast host this new all-access exclusive live conversation.
We're calling it She Built This.
The hidden history of women in residential architecture.
And for members joining live, there's AIA-approved continuing education credit for attending.
Reserve your spot at gablemedia.com/allaccess.
See you there.
calling all small firm architects. It's time to tap into your full potential with Entre Architects Context and Clarity, where inspiration meets innovation. Hey, it's Mark R. LePage, founder of Entre Architect, and I'm inviting you to join my two favorite co-hosts, Jeff Eccles and Katie Kangas, as they bring together authors, experts, and thought leaders for electric conversations with entrepreneur architects around the globe. It's not just a podcast, it's a community where dreams meet action.
There's a simple equation there. And what that did, just doing that basic calculation, was it allowed me to compare what I had actually saved in my retirement accounts to what I thought a possible projected annual spend might be.
Artists are temperamental, so beautiful design is going to be a priority. When the job is done, we're going to actually need to live in the house, not live with the person who designed it. And so for me, the artistic skill, the architectural skill is most important. And so I would say that would be 60% of it, if not more.
Gain insights to build a successful practice. Subscribe, engage, and let's redefine your future together. Join the Context and Clarity community, where every conversation adds to your blueprint for success. My name is Mark R. LePage, and you are listening to Entre Architect Podcast, where each week I speak with inspiring, passionate people who share their knowledge and expertise, all to help you build a better business as a small firm entrepreneur architect. Today, we're diving into the journey toward one of the highest honors in the architectural profession, fellowship in the American Institute of Architects. My guest, Jim Zack, was recently elevated to the AIA College of Fellows, and Jim is a founding principal at Zack DeVito Architecture and Construction, a longtime advocate for architect-led design build. He's been here before a couple of times, 3 times, 2 times, I don't remember, but you've been here several times. And we also have Je'Nen Chastain, a friend as well, a founder of Apostrophe Consulting, who supported Jim throughout his fellowship process. Together, we'll explore what it takes to earn fellowship at the AIA and how small firm architects can navigate this path successfully. Jim and Je'Nen, welcome back to the Entre Architect Podcast.
Hi, Mark. I'm very excited to be back and to talk about this topic. I think it's pretty fun and exciting. 6 months ago, I was driving to work listening to a podcast, and I had just found out that I had been elevated. And I literally pulled over to the side of the road and wrote you an email and said, Mark, we got to do a podcast on how small firms get fellowship. So here we are.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Je'Nen, how are you doing?
I'm great. I'm so excited to be with you both, two legends in the architecture entrepreneur space. So as a young entrepreneur, I can't be more thrilled.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I mentioned Jim's been on before talking about architect as developer. He's an architect developer. I think episodes 102 and 185. And Je'Nen has recently been on, she's been on a couple of times, but most recently, episode 572, guiding architects through the process of change. So you may actually recognize both of them. You can look at those episodes and dive in deeper. They've shared their origin story before, so we're not going to dive deep into their origin, but maybe we can start, Jim, with you and just share a little bit of context. So anybody who doesn't know who are you and what do you do?
Sure. So I'm in San Francisco, California. I'm an architect. I'm a builder and an occasional developer. And I've been in business since 1991. And long path to get to this point. And if we're talking about fellowship, we'll get into the details. But I will say it's not something that I ever set down as a goal. It sort of evolved into it. And now that we're here, I think I have a lot of insights on the process and to discuss why someone might do it. So I'm an architect and a builder and a pretty, at this point, strong advocate for membership in AIA.
All right. Looking forward to this conversation. And Je'Nen, what about you? What's your context for anybody who may not know you? Who are you and what do you do?
My name's Je'Nen Chastain, and I launched Apostrophe Consulting in 2019, and I've been building that company for the last 6 years. But before I did that, I was out in the Bay Area where I got my exposure to the industry and built a career in architecture, marketing, and communications in San Francisco. And these are skills that I later brought into building my company. I also have a very long tenure in the AIA as someone who's been active as a volunteer and supported individuals like Jim through fellowship, trying to go after the highest honor of the Institute.
All right. Fantastic. I want to start big picture. For anybody who doesn't know what fellowship is, Jim, what does it mean to become a fellow of the AIA?
Well, I think, as you say, it's one of the higher honors for an individual in the AIA. You can get firm award, you can get design awards. And the one thing that they make very clear through this process is that the fellowship is a very much an individual thing. And it's, to some degree, a series of accomplishments through your career. I think you have to be an AIA member for 10 years. It's obviously only available to people in the AIA, so it doesn't necessarily cover everybody in our profession. The number I've heard is 3% of members of the AIA are elevated to the College of Fellows. And I think that means it's a bit daunting. And I don't think it needs to be. We'll kind of get into the details of that. But It's a big honor. I just got back from the investiture and the AIA convention last week in Boston. And I think it really hits home that it's a very serious institutionalized component of the AIA, and a lot of time, effort, money, and people spend a lot of effort to kind of recognize the people that are elevated. And it, you take it to heart. It really kind of hits home that it's a pretty important thing. So I'm quite honored and kind of get shivers about it a little bit.
Yeah, that's awesome. Je'Nen, who is fellowship for? Maybe even talk a little bit about the process. How does the framework and the process of fellowship work as a high level?
Yeah, it is for architects who have dedicated their career to positively shaping the profession. And that is demonstrated in a variety of ways. But I think about building on what Jim just said, actually going through the investiture ceremony. Every year, there is a cohort of individuals who are recognized and brought together for this honor ceremony. And it is architects of all walks of life who have spent their career thinking about ways to expand the profession and to bring the thing that they care the most about into focus through their portfolio, through the contributions that they make to the industry. And it is always such a moving moment to hear these stories. When individuals walk across the stage, they're given a very short sentence to describe the full impact that they've made over a lifetime. And at the end of it, everyone is just moved beyond. It's hard to explain unless you've experienced it, but watching the families that come together to celebrate. Anyone who studied architecture or practiced, how many hours go in to making the built environment real, and to have the moment to recognize all of those hours and all of that hard effort spent is very powerful.
Yeah, that's perfect. I love the way you described that. Jim, earlier on, you said that it wasn't really part of the plan. So why did you decide to pursue fellowship now?
That's an interesting one. And I made some notes for today. And the number one note was, why fellowship? Why would you do this? And I think it's pretty clear as an architect in the profession that over the years, you do see people who get elevated to fellowship. And who are those people and why do they get it? And great, Frank Geary's a fellow in the AIA. How does that relate to me?
Right.
Building little buildings in San Francisco. And so I think that when you look at who's been elevated to fellowship, it is all the heroes. There's no doubt about that. But that's only a very small percentage of the people that get it. And most of the people that get it are, I'd say, we struggle in obscurity. And we don't get the same level of attention that the kind of architects get. And this is maybe one way to get some sense of accomplishment. I know that in my city, in San Francisco, we have a very, very strong AIA component. And they have a very, very well-established, well-developed fellowship committee. And I will say that this was not something that I had thought about myself. They basically tell you that you're ready. And they say, you now qualify.
You're up, Jim.
We think that you have the experience and the resume and whatever that would qualify you to do this. And so we encourage you to try to do that. I will say a few weeks ago, I was looking for something else and I stumbled across a folder that said AIA Fellowship, and it was from 7 years ago. So, my journey to do this was 7 or 8 years, and meaning that the first time that it kind of came on my radar was about 8 years ago. And I looked at it and I did a little bit of work on it. And then there's some deadlines about submitting this for local review. And I never made those deadlines. They're always kind of in the fall, and it's like, oh, I'm going on summer vacation. So it took me, 7 years until last summer to really take it seriously. And I actually had a portfolio started and the outline started and had help from some people like Je'Nen, and we'd gone through it. But to really sit down and finish it, I finally did it last year. It's a beast of an endeavor. A lot of people that work in big firms get it. I was just chatting with a friend today who's a principal in a 100-person firm, and he said, we pick one person a year that we're going to support to apply for fellowship in that 100 or 150-person firm. And they have resources. And I think that's one of the really big important things for us to talk about, is that if you're a small firm, you're the resource.
Yeah.
And how do you work through this kind of challenging process when you're kind of by yourself? And I think that to me was number one, is you can't do it by yourself. You have to have help. You almost can't do it by yourself. I talked to a couple of people that I think for the most part did. I had help with graphic design, which is really important. The primary component of what you're submitting is a 40-page, it's not quite accurate to call it a portfolio, but we all familiar with portfolio. So we'll just call it the portfolio. I call it the beast. And it's very, very tightly formatted. What you include, where things go, what it looks like, maybe not what it looks like. You can decide what it looks like. But what goes in it, the general topics of how it's organized, it's predetermined, and you have to fill in the blanks. Really important one is that if people are serious about this, just Google AIA Fellowship. You will get to the AIA Fellowship site, and there are a lot of resources there, and they're growing all the time. I just looked at it this morning, and there's a whole new section on like how to apply for fellowship, and it just takes you through it on a kind of page by page basis. We'll never cover everything that needs to be done today, but that's probably the best resource. And for me, one of the most important resources is on that page is a collection of past submissions. And so you can peruse past submissions. What I did is I went through them and I found one that I really liked that just sort of resonated with me graphically, that had some similarity in the sense of focus on design. And I said, okay, if this guy got it, then I'm going to kind of follow along generally what this person did. And, I didn't know who they were. They're kind of anonymous. I just like the general look of it. And one of the things I found very interesting when you start looking at these other applications is how they're all the same and they're all amazingly different.
Mm-hmm.
And me, I'm a designer. I'm graphically focused. I'm a modernist. I'm a minimalist. And some of them were anything but that. And the one I found was just very kind of crisp and clean and full bleed images and not very fussy. And so that worked for me. Another really important component of this is that there's 6 different ways or categories in which you can apply under. And they're all listed on this website. They call them objects. And don't need to go into detail on all of them, but I've always found it very interesting that object 1 is design. I wish they'd make it 6 or 5, anything but 1, because to me, it kind of gives it to some false sense of importance. And it is what it says. It's design. And if you have really high quality design, if you win design awards and you get recognition for the quality of design for your project, then I think you consider that. The second one they call practice. And within that, there's management and kind of what they call technical advancement. I think practice is a catch-all. And it's sort of, if you don't fit into something else, you do practice. Practice has the highest percentage of people apply every year. In this new document, applying for fellowship, at the end, there's statistics of the last 3 years. It's really interesting to see that, how many people applied, how many elevated, how many applied in each object. And that's a very interesting one to follow and just to think about it. For me, we do design work. We do design focus projects. We win awards, but I also have what I will call an alternative practice. I've been kind of an outlier my whole life.
Yeah.
And so even though we had what I think of as high quality design, the portfolio or sample one that I found was submitted under design, but I was encouraged to submit under object 2, which is practice. That proved successful. I think we probably could have submitted under design. I don't know that it would have made much difference. I think at the end of the day, you create the quality portfolio and you have to, state a position, and you have to defend that position and explain that position and why is it you've done this. So that's a really good place to start, is just go to the AI Fellowship website. I'm not sure I still have an answer to the question of why. Architects, we're an egotistical bunch, right? And I think we win awards. We go to school and we put our things on the wall for people to criticize, and we're used to kind of striving for recognition. And this is just another form of that recognition.
Maybe the question is, after getting it, how has it changed you?
Yeah.
That's an interesting one. It was a lot of work to submit it and get it ready. And I thought I did a great job by the time we were done. I was quite happy with what I submitted, but that's just me. And then there's a waiting period. I think you submit in October and they let you know in February. I had the wonderful experience that my daughter, who's now 25, went to work for the San Francisco AIA in January, and she called me up to tell me.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that was really quite special. I think since then, you talk to a lot of people and you start to kind of not surround yourself, but come in contact with a lot of other people that have fellowship. And everyone was go to the convention, do it all, participate, take it in. And it really is. It's a quite fun thing. On a daily basis, I don't know. I, to be honest, feel somewhat like the imposter, like, does what I do every day really justify this? And, who am I to say? But
apparently, yes.
Apparently, yes.
I think so.
I had a funny analogy in my thinking through it. It was 30 years ago, planning to meet someone in London, and we agreed to meet on the steps of St. Paul's Cathedral. And I'm not a particularly religious person. And I can remember sitting there waiting for her and just thinking, I may not believe in this, but there were a hell of a lot of people that did, that allowed this building to be created. And I kind of think about that in relation to the fellowship. And is it, as much as I am proud of it, I don't know how much it changes my day-to-day life, but there are a lot of people out there spending a lot of time and money and attention and focus on this that does give it a level of importance, regardless of how I feel about it. But so far, day to day, not getting any more phone calls, for new work, but it's still a great thing.
What does the timeline look like on putting together an application from the beginning of submitting it, the initial process, all the way through to the actual investiture?
I think that someone can do it in a year. I think a lot of people do like I do and kind of think about it and start, and then they don't get enough information together to submit it for the first year. You do it the second year. I think if you were very organized, you could do it in a year. Some of the steps that are really important to understand is you have to be nominated. And I think most chapters have a nominating process. And if your chapter nominates you, you're done. You can effectively self-nominate. I think you have to get referrals from 5 current fellows. So if you're not really affiliated with the local AI chapter, I believe there's ways to kind of, self-nominate, and that's all described on the website. Our chapter, again, is very organized, and so the chapter nominates you. You have to find a sponsor, a single individual who will write you a letter of support. And generally speaking, they're fellows. They're people that have already been nominated, and they're your kind of guide through the process to some degree. The person I picked was Je'Nen's former boss, just by coincidence. That was quite nice. It was someone who I've known for a very, very long time. I wouldn't say we're friends. I just kind of had a feeling that he had an understanding of what I'd done over the years, maybe from a distance. His firm was AI Firm of the Year 4 or 5 years ago. Very, very highly respected San Francisco firm. So that's a very important piece of selecting the right person. In some ways, you don't want someone, to me, who's like your best friend. It's someone who knows you and can write about you and be sincere and be critical. And then I think the next really important one is you need 7 references. And I think that my reference list was really good. And I think that was very helpful. I don't know. You don't get criticism. You only get criticism if you don't get selected, which is very interesting.
And request it.
And request it. So you can apply, and if you don't get elevated, the assumption is you'll try again, and then they'll send you some comments on your application. So you have to find 7 people. Again, they need to know who you are. They don't have to be your best friends, but it's super important that they be diverse in every way you can think of. Architects, not architects. I mean, you need 5 architects. They don't all need to be fellows, but it helps. You need a couple of people that are maybe affiliated to the industry, but not architects. You need to have geographic diversity, which is perhaps the most important thing. Having gender diversity would help. Having ethnic diversity will help. But in the end, it's probably one of the most important aspects of what qualifies you for fellowship. And it's that you have some impact. That's what Je'Nen was describing, some impact on the profession above and beyond, let's just say, your home market. You have to have stepped out. You have to have participated in the profession in a more broad level. I suppose if you're submitting under design, that could be, having lots and lots of editorial coverage of your projects. That's kind of stepping out to some degree under design. I think if you're doing the other objects, you probably need to, be out in the world. And when I say I didn't plan to do this, and I think back, your question of origin story really was impactful, on so many levels, and really helped me with this because it got me thinking, however many years ago we did this first podcast of what is your origin story? What have you done? Why are you here? That kind of running story of being at a party and people asking you, what do you do? I'm an architect. Oh, I wanted to be an architect. Why are you an architect? And every architect has this story of, it's the Brady Bunch or Legos or a present that their parents gave them in 8th grade. And so that origin story is kind of important. So I think I'm just a naturally curious person and I'm naturally engaged and I get involved. And I've just kind of naturally done that at many levels. When I was younger, I had no interest in the AIA at all. I felt like I was a little bit of a rebel and kind of outside the mainstream. And eventually sort of design awards, and we have a home tour in San Francisco, and we got projects on the home tour, and they kind of suck you in and say, well, if we're going to support your projects, you should come and support us. And eventually that led to being on the board of directors in San Francisco. And then since then, I've been on design juries, I've been on committees at the state AI level. So been pretty involved in the AIA, not extreme, but definitely been there pretty regularly. I've attended conferences, it's like your growing conference you have every year, and there's other ones. I've been to the AIA conference a couple times. I think it's overwhelming. It's so big, but there's smaller conferences. Residential Design Magazine, used to be Residential Architect, used to put on a conference. CRAN, which is a knowledge committee of the AIA, has a conference every year where it's 300 or 400 people instead of 15,000. And I've attended those pretty regularly and developed a network of friends. I've given talks at some of those. I've done one with Mark in Santa Rosa some years ago. It's, I think, where we first met. And so that kind of thing where I didn't do it because I thought it would help elevation to fellowship. I just did it because I was curious and interested and liked kind of getting out there in the world. And I guess I'm a little bit of an evangelist about what I do because it's alternative. I like what I do. I think there's a lot of benefit to it. And so I kind of proselytize DesignBuild and architect as developer.
Yeah.
And so that's just helped. And so that you have to be out there in the world. The AIA calls it the ripple effect. You need to demonstrate in this portfolio how you have impacted the profession in a broader sense than, doing good work at home.
Let's take a quick break to say thank you to our sponsors for their support of this episode. Gain lessons learned and credits earned with Arcademy, ARCAT's continuing education program. Listen to popular episodes of the Detailed podcast and earn AIA-approved HSW credits. Yes, you heard that right, HSW credits for episodes of Detailed podcast. Listen to an episode, check out the learning objectives, and use what you've learned while listening to take the course. The program is free, it's simple, and can be found at arcat.com under the Resources tab. Or just go to arcat.com/arcademy. That's arcat.com/ARCATEMY. That's arcat.com/Arcademy. Please visit our sponsors today and thank them. Thank them for supporting you, the EntreArchitect community. Je'Nen, as somebody who helps and supports people who are applying for fellowship, what does that process look like? What are the things that somebody like you are doing to help somebody like Jim? And maybe also, what are some of the challenges that you see happening over and over again while going through this process?
There's so much to say in that question. And I would say it's a soul-searching process. I think it challenges people to really examine why they went into architecture, why they stayed in it throughout their career. And Jim's unique because I don't think he knew, but I think he was driven the whole way through his career towards this thing that he was trying to explore further, which was the intersection of architecture and building and craft and construction. And actually that's what unites him so well with his sponsor, is that they care so much about the constructability of design. And so his story was around the marriage of those things and the pursuit of those ideas in terms of what he was able to produce through his practice. But not everybody understands that story on the front end of this process. You walk into it knowing that you've committed a substantial amount of time into doing what you've done with your career. But then to ask someone to tell that story in a compelling way to someone else, most people are not equipped with the vocabulary or self-reflection to just know what that story is out of the gate. It takes time to really look at your career and break it down. And so I think a couple of challenges that people run into when they start this process is what they're asking is quite substantial. That's why it takes a year. It's not a portfolio and it is not your CV. And I think breaking away from this idea that you're presenting your credentials in a chronological way, that's not what they want. They want you to tell them what's important about what you've done and how it fundamentally impacted the industry. And that's why those letters and that diversity is so important, because what it's communicating is that from his office in San Francisco, Jim was able to impact other parts of the industry beyond just his local region, that it improved the quality of the profession in some way. And so I'm going to read you Jim's, I think it's 35 words. Is that it? 35 words?
Yeah. They call it the summary statement. It's the the first page of the document is your sponsor's letter. The second page is sort of your introduction. They call it summary statement. I think it's 25 to 35 words. They call it the zinger.
I'm going to read it to you because this is what they read when you walk across stage. And I want to preface this by saying that this is the hardest sentence to write in this whole submission, even though it's only so few words. Jim leads one of the most influential architect-led design-build firms in the country. His practice, integrating award-winning design, construction, and craft, informs and inspires clients, architects, and builders nationwide. And so his entire 40-page submission is distilled down into that summary.
It's the elevator speech.
Yeah.
And I wrote down to say is that you write that first, like learn about what the process is, decide that, yes, this is something you'd like to pursue, immediately sit down and write that 35 words. And then you're going to rewrite it every week or every month for the next year until you submit it. And I think we were editing that down till the last minute, changing a word here, changing a word there, because it is impactful. And then the next 39 pages is to support that comment, that statement.
You talked earlier about when you were on stage and the impact that it had on you. It almost sounded like it was a little unexpected to have that type of emotion. When you do complete this submission and you are awarded this prestigious award in our profession, how does that make you feel when you're looking back, connecting the dots? Not necessarily the feeling of being accomplished or being acknowledged, right? The F with the AIA, right? That's one thing. But connecting the dots and looking what the impact that you've had on our profession and therefore our society, how does that make you feel?
I think it makes you feel really good. I mean, it's a win. There's no doubt, there's just that aspect of it. It's no different than winning a design award in some ways. It's just for a broader scope of what you do. I will say that it does make me think, maybe not quite daily, but regularly in the last 6 months, about it's not the end. It's kind of the beginning of the next phase of your career. And I guess I'm taking it very seriously about this whole idea of how do you impact and how do you continue to impact. And so I think I may be reinvigorated with this idea of how do you share and how do you bring other people along? It's why we're doing this, and I think it's a great thing. And how do you help other people do it? And I think that the small firm architect, I don't know that the statistic exists from the AIA of like, what are the size of the firms of the people that get it? There's a lot of people in, small to mid-sized firms that do get this, but it's also a lot of people from the big firms. And I think we all are very familiar with that statistic of 60% of the architecture firms in America are under 10 people, but 60 or 70% of the people work in the large firms, right? So there's a lot of small firms. And It's a tough one, How does it change you? I don't think it changes you, but it does definitely make me think about it. And I am thinking like actively, like, okay, what's the next thing? And it's doing this, and it's thinking about, I guess I think about younger people and how you bring younger people kind of forward.
Yeah. It sounds like you feel a sense of responsibility now beyond the sense of responsibility that you already naturally had. But once you've been acknowledged, even the fact that you received this recognition, and one of the first things you did was email me saying, hey, we need to talk about this on the podcast because other people need to know this.
Mark was one of my references. So this is all very, insider, but, that was pretty quick for me, is wanting to just demonstrate through your references that you have experience and relationships with people that are sort of, in a different realm than you operate in daily. I had an architect friend that I met through CRAN and small conferences who practices in Cape Cod, very, very large, well-recognized residential firm, and he's a fellow. I had a very, very well-known architect developer in San Diego who was my reference. I will say, like in my references, 5 people I knew really well. One person I knew really well 30 years ago and haven't talked to him in 30 years, but he has a pretty high stature in our profession. The guy in San Diego I met once, and that was kind of an outlier. And I sent him a really silly message. And as soon as I hit send, I was like, Jesus, why did I do that? But he actually said yes, and I had a editor of a magazine who I've known for 10 or 15 years, another architect that used to be in San Francisco and moved to the Midwest and now is a partner in a big firm. And then, a local architect who's also fellow. All my references were fellows. That wasn't too difficult. But that list also, kind of like the zinger, that list changed a little bit. You talk to people, you ask people, what's the right mix here? And who are these people that are going to support this story? Also very important is you don't see their letters.
Yeah.
You see the letter from your sponsor, that's part of your application, but you do not see the reference letters in theory.
And people will lose if their letters don't align with the submission. So that's like one way you can get easily knocked out.
And I will say, some people, of those 7 people, some of them, I never said anything. The guy who I knew quite well 30 years ago, he's a critic, he's an educator, he's a writer, he's run museums, all architecture and design related. And again, we were quite well acquainted 30 years ago. He was in San Francisco. And since then, he's been all over the world. And I just got on a Zoom with him and just kind of caught him up. This is what I've been doing the last 30 years.
Yeah.
And would you do this? And I will say, him and Mr. Developer Architect in San Diego, I didn't know that well, at least recently. They were my outliers, and they were very much selected by the fact that I kind of knew them well enough to ask and that they had some stature. And everybody else, I could care less what their stature was, acknowledging that some of them were relatively well known in our profession, not necessarily at star level, but still pretty well known, at least in my world. But they all know me. They all knew me. And to me, that was what's really important, is you can't just go and say, I met Frank Gehry once, so I'm going to ask Frank Gehry to be my reference. They see right through that, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there has to be some sincerity to the references, but I think it's a super important part of it.
What would you say, as we wrap up here? We're talking to thousands of small firm architects listening right now. Lots of them have their own firms and they're overloaded with work. And some of them want to do this, but they just think that they can't. What would you say to those out there who are at the level where they could receive a recognition like this? What are your final thoughts? I'd like both of you to answer that question. Jim first.
Well, get help. Graphics is important. Someone to physically do the work to lay out the portfolio and do the graphics. It has to be graphically good in the modern world. I saw the submission of someone, the guy in San Diego from 25 years ago, and it was Xerox copies of newspaper articles that were sideways on the paper. That won't work anymore.
Yeah.
So it needs to be beautiful. And there's no reason it can't be. You need help with the writing. I will say I did most of my writing, but someone edited it. Someone looked at it, and I used some of their comments. Je'Nen helped me, and I used some of her comments, and she was very instrumental in kind of laying out the original. Another really important one that I kind of did, but I don't think I did it completely enough, is like do a cartoon set any way you can, whether it's on 40 pieces of paper or I did it in my CAD program because it's what I'm most familiar with. And I just laid out 40 pages and started kind of like putting the general idea that you could move parts around So before you get into the detail of images, kind of just do a cartoon set of it. And it helps organize the thinking around the different ideas in the support, and start collecting, mentally, and a list of the things that you have. You have to have accomplishment. There is no doubt, right? And you have to have publications. You have to have given talks. You have to have some engagement in the AIA. Not any one thing is more important than the other. And not everybody's is probably going to have that. There are probably people that don't do anything in the AIA, but have strength in another area. But kind of understand your own origin story. I'm really serious about the impact of your question, what's your origin story over the last 10 or 15 years that's instilled in me, and really thinking about, what you do and how you get there. So number one, get help. Don't be unrealistic about the schedule. It's okay if you don't do it this year. Start thinking about it this year, and then maybe you do it next year.
I'm going to add, I think the schedule is a critical piece. I think early on, Jim, I'm not sure you totally understood the sheer emotional and mental depth that this was going to require. And I think where you succeeded was taking an iterative approach. And I know you weren't sure, when you were going to submit, but you kind of chipped away at it over time instead of, I've definitely met people who go through this process and they're like, it's June and I'm going to submit this in October. Wrong. You might, but you're most likely going to be really having a bad summer. So I think the fact that Jim kind of spaced it out was really smart, and it played to his advantage, actually.
Yeah. There is a very concise page on the online thing that I'm mentioning, the submission guidelines. And they just say it's a 1-year task. Yeah. Like in October, you start thinking about it and you start collecting images and you start talking to people and you start collecting your references in preparation to submit it the next October. And that's realistic. It's unrealistic to say in June that I'm going to submit this in October. It's probably not possible.
Yeah.
It's a 1-year journey minimum.
I had a lunch with a friend and he was meeting someone else who I also knew at the end of our lunch, and she came in and she's also was very involved in AA, not an architect, and had helped shepherd many people through fellowship. And we somehow started talking about it. And she said, I'm helping you. You're the person I'm helping this year. We're meeting next week. You're going to do this. And that's what it took. And that was probably sometime in the summer. And for 3 months, I will say that I probably spent 30 hours a week for 3 months on this. I would stay home half a day, twice a week in the morning. I'd stay up at night. I'd work on weekends. And if you're a small firm and you don't have a group of people helping you, that's what it takes. So it was a 30-hour a week for 3-month endeavor.
I do want to just add, for those small firm leaders listening, the value. I think it is different than a design award. We spend so much of our careers focused on our projects and submitting our projects to our peers for review. What makes this so different is this is a body of work around you as the individual and your contribution as an architect to the industry. And I think it's very personal. And I think that the journey that you go on by working through your submission, not only in Jim's case has it given him inspiration to see how he's able to step back from his day-to-day work in the weeds of the work and think about the larger impact he can contribute, but it also clarifies your story. It clarifies what and why you're waking up every morning to do what you do.
Yeah. Final question for both of you. I'm going to start with Je'Nen. What's one thing a small firm architect can do today to build a better business for tomorrow?
Get out of the details and take a step back.
Jim?
It's always a hard question, Mark. But, I think these days, as much as I love architecture and the design aspect of architecture, and I think you preach this regularly, which is business, 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 and how do you take the creative side of what we do and make it a business? And I think the more you can learn about business and the more you can learn about the finances of a business, probably the more successful you'll be, even if you're focusing primarily on design.
Her name is Je'Nen Chastain. Apostrophe Consulting is her firm. If you want to check her out, it's apostrophe.consulting is the website, apostrophe.consulting. His name is Jim Zack, F-AIA. Zach DeVito is the firm. ZachDeVito.com is the website. You can go check out all the beautiful work that Jim and his team does there. Jim, first of all, congratulations on the fellowship. And thank you for all of the work that you've done throughout the years that made that recognition something that was worthy of recognizing you for. You put a lot into the work that you do. You're dedicated to the work that you do, and I appreciate you for that.
Final word on my part is I'll live up to what I've said. Is my email's on my website, and if you're interested in doing this and want some support, advice, guidance, feel free to reach out. And that's 5 people. That's fine. If it's 500, I'll help what I can.
All right. ZachDeVito.com is the website there. Thank you all for joining us today. I appreciate you. Jim, thank you. Je'Nen, thank you. Have a great day. If you liked this episode of Entre Architect Podcast, please share a link to this episode with a friend. Either just click the share button or highlight the URL and send the link to this episode with a friend, because that's how Entre Architect has grown to serve thousands more architects just like you throughout the 10 plus years of Entre Architect. That's how we've grown, architect to architect. So I would love for you to share this episode and all the episodes with one friend every week. Would love that. And thank you to our sponsors for this episode. We don't have an episode if there's no sponsors. So thank you to our sponsors. Links to those sponsors, which you should go visit and click, and all the resources that we discussed today for this specific episode, they are all available at entrearchitect.com/podcast. Every episode that we've recorded is there, entrearchitect.com/podcast. Go click the links to the sponsors and say hello. Entre Architect is a member of the Gable Media Podcast Network. You should go visit that at gablemedia.com. That is the next evolution of interactive media and resources for the AEC community. You can now earn continuing education credits for listening to select episodes of this podcast, Entre Architect Podcast. Yes, AIA CEUs for listening to a podcast. It's there, and many other podcasts are there as well, and you can listen to all of them and get credit. Learn more about our program, Gable Members Program, at the gablemedia.com/members website. That's GABL media.com/members. And if you are a small firm architect, join us today at Entre Architect Network. That is the worldwide organization for small firm entrepreneur architects. If you own your own architecture firm, you are an entrepreneur architect. You are an Entre Architect. With weekly live group business coaching, we have business coaching there, monthly live business training with AIA CEUs, 2 a month, so 24 AIA credits per year, including 12 of those are HSWs. We have them in the membership. Business resources, all the resources you need to run your business, special session webinars, mastermind groups, and a thriving community of small firm architects just like you. Hundreds of architects are there waiting for you to join. So we provide the support and encouragement you need to succeed as a small firm architect. I know that you haven't been trained as a business person when you launched your firm. That's what we do. Come learn how to run a business at Entre Architect Network. And today you can go join right now for free for 30 days at this link, entrearchitect.com/30 days will give you free 30 days for membership. Go check it out at entrearchitect.com/30 days, and I will see you there. Thank you for listening to this episode of Entre Architect Podcast. My name is Mark R. LePage, and I want you to remember 3 words: love, learn, share. Have a great day. Attention architects and creative minds, get ready to supercharge your brand with Build Your Brand, the podcast that's unlocking the secrets of branding success for creatives. Hey there, it's Mark R. LePage, founder of Entre Architect, and I'm inviting you to join my friend, architect marketing expert Jeff Eccles at Build Your Brand podcast, where he explores the captivating stories of the world's top brands and transforms their lessons into powerful moves for small firm architects and creatives like you. In Season 1, Jeff shares the thrilling tale of Southwest Airlines, where he dissects their journey to the summit and distills it into strategies tailor-made for you.
It's important to keep in mind that companies like Southwest compete in the real world, just like you, and face real-world challenges, just like you. You might be surprised at how similar those challenges are to the struggles that you grapple with on a day-to-day basis.
Don't miss out on your blueprint for success. Subscribe, tune in, and let's build your brand together.
You may have noticed that the very best brands in the world are also known for having somewhat unique corporate cultures. That's often the glue that holds everything together when they encounter those rough spots.
We don't do it because it inconveniences the passengers to whom we are primarily dedicated, the short haul, frequent flyer.
Follow the link in the show notes to subscribe to Build Your Brand today. Remember, no matter the size, the journey's the same. Your brand's journey to the top starts here.
Imagine earning continuing education credits while doing exactly what you're doing right now. Well, you can. Gable Media has revolutionized the way you earn your continuing education credits with a groundbreaking approach. Forget running around town and scouring the internet for credit-worthy courses. Fulfill your CE requirements effortlessly by listening to engaging podcasts just like the one you're listening to now. Our podcasts are designed to educate, entertain, and inspire, all in a user-friendly environment. But wait, there's more. Architects, Gable Media is also approved as an AIA continuing education services provider. Upon completion, we handle everything, from reporting your hours directly to the AIA to storing your certificates in your personal Gable Media profile for your self-reporting needs. So follow the link in the show notes and start earning your credits in the most innovative and entertaining way possible with Gable Media.
Attention architects and creative minds, get ready to supercharge your brand with Build Your Brand, the podcast that's unlocking the secrets of branding success for creatives. Hey there, it's Mark LePage, founder of Entre Architect, and I'm inviting you to join my friend, architect marketing expert Jeff Eccles at Build Your Brand podcast, where he explores the captivating stories of the world's top brands and transforms their lessons into powerful moves for small firm architects and creatives like you. In Season 1, Jeff shares the thrilling tale of Southwest Airlines, where he dissects their journey to the summit and distills it into strategies tailor-made for you.
It's important to keep in mind that companies like Southwest compete in the real world, just like you, and face real-world challenges, just like you. You might be surprised at how similar those challenges are to the struggles that you grapple with on a day-to-day basis.
Don't miss out on your blueprint for success. Subscribe, tune in, and let's build your brand together.
You may have noticed that the very best brands in the world are also known for having somewhat unique corporate cultures. That's often the glue that holds everything together when they encounter those rough spots.
We don't do it because it inconveniences the passengers to whom we are primarily dedicated, the short haul, frequent flyer.
Follow the link in the show notes to subscribe to Build Your Brand today. Remember, no matter the size, the journey's the same. Your brand's journey to the top starts here.